Hi, my name is Camille Bautista from BS Math 3B, and today we will discuss about psychological foundation of curriculum under behavioral theories. And the first person we will discuss is Ivan Pavlov. Pavlov classical conditioning. Classical conditioning, a learned reflex response that you do when evoked by a stimulus. Pavlov performed experiments with dogs on to collect saliva. He noticed that the dog would salivate when a food was present. Pavlov associated the ring of bell with the presence of food. He rang the bell every dogs were served food. And he noticed that even even without a food Even without food, and he rang the bell, the dog would salivate. Thus, it's a learned reflex. So, how we will apply in a classroom? Okay, to apply the classical conditioning, teacher will use classical conditioning to quiet down the students. For example, first day of school or first day of class, students walk into class and teacher sit at desk. Teacher goes towards board when ready to teach and children will quiet down. At the second day of class, students are chatty. When the teacher goes to the board, teacher will ask to be quiet. But the third day, students are automatically quiet when the teacher walks to the board. Thus, it's a learned reflex. Dito po may papakita na natututo tayo sa paraan na tinuturo sa atin. Another example to quiet down the students. First day of school, nakaupo lahat ng estudyante and the teacher, tinurn on niya yung projector. So it means, tumigil sa pagsasalita or pag-iingay yung mga estudyante kasi alam nila magtuturo na yung teacher. Second day of class, nag-ingay sila kahit na naka-turn on na yung projector. So the teacher will ask na, please class quiet. So in the third day, dahil natuto na sila na pag tinurn on na ng teacher yung projector, dapat magiging behave, makikinig, at makikipag-participate na sila sa lesson. And that is classical conditioning. And second person we will discuss is Edward Thorndike. Ang kanyang theory naman is connectionism theory and the three laws of learning. Thorndike's puzzle box. So, he placed a cat in the puzzle box, which was encouraged to escape to reach a scarf of fish placed outside. Thorndike would put a cat into the box and time how long it took to escape. The cats experimented with different ways to escape the puzzle box and reach the fish or the reward. Eventually, they would stumble upon the lever which opened the cage. When it had escaped, it was put in again, and once more time it took to escape was noted. In successive trials, and cat would learn that pressing the lever would have horrible consequence like the fish. And also, after much trial and error, the cat learned to associate pressing the lever or the stimulus with the opening of the door or the response. The cat tend to repeat the behavior that led to escape and not to repeat the behavior that were infected. This stimulus response connection is established. And according to him, he proposed the three laws of learning: the law of effect, law of exercise, law of readiness. First, we will discuss about law of effect. Stated that connection between stimulus and response is strengthened when the consequence is positive or reward, and the connection between the stimulus and response is weakened when the consequence is negative or punishment. Learning will always be much more effective when a feeling of satisfaction, pleasantness, or reward accompanied in learning process. Dito po sa law of effect, kumbaga, meron po tayong reward and punishment. For example, cheating. Ang cheating, ang magiging reward niya is papasa ka sa exam or tataas yung grade mo. But the punishment, pwede kang ma-expel kasi nahuli kang nag-cheat. And that is law of effect. Next law of exercise. Stated the more SR or stimulus respond bond is practice, the stronger it will become. Sabi nga dito, practice makes perfect. And we learn by doing, we forget by not doing. For example na lang, po, sa isang school, ang way ng pag-greet natin sa teacher is like, good morning ma'am, good morning sir, or bless. The kamay, bless. But because of the pandemic, nakakalimutan na natin yung way na yun. So, when it comes with the face-to-face na, parang wala na sa atin yung greet na way sa mga teacher. So, SR connections that are repeated are strengthened. Then, SR connections that are not used are weakened. And last, law of learning, law of readiness. ACE states that the more readiness the learner has to respond to their stimulus, the stronger will be bond between them. When the person is ready to respond to a stimulus and it's not made to respond, it becomes annoying to the person. One learns only when he or she is physically answered mentally ready for it. Dito po sa law of readiness, kumbaga dito po makikita kung gaano ka-ready mag-respond ang isang tao sa isang pangyayari or bagay. And our third person to discuss is Robert Gane. And to him naman is the Gagne's or Gagne hierarchical learning theory. First is signal learning. In signal learning, this is simply a form of learning and consists essentially of classical conditioning first described by the behavioral psychologist Pavlov. In this type of learning, the animal or individual acquires a conditioned response to a given signal. For example, the salvation of a dog upon hearing the bell rang to a food. That is a signal learning. Next, stimulus response learning. This somewhat more sophisticated form of learning, which is also known as operant conditioning, was originally developed by Skinner. In this kind of learning, exemplified by animal training, the animal makes precise responses to specific stimuli. And para mas maintindihan, ito po yung, for example, the child may learn to say mama on request. Pag sinabi ng isang bata na, mama, kanyang ganon. or he wants to have a milk. So he or she said mama. And that is stimulus response learning. Chaining or channing. This is This is a more advanced form of learning in which the subject develops the ability to connect two or more previously learned stimulus response bands into a sequence. And for this learning, on this part, we will give example like riding a bicycle or playing piano. Kasi sabi nga po dito, more advanced form of learning. And dapat connect two or more previously learned stimulus response. So, pwede siyang signal and um, stimulus response na learning theory. So, next is verbal association. This is a form of chaining in which the links between the items being connected are verbal in nature. Verbal association is one of the key processes in the development of language skills. This learning is a type of training, but the links are verbal units. And the simplest verbal associations is the activity on naming an object, which involves a chain of two links. For example, a child again. Kanina, example natin yung mama to request. But this time, a child can name an object like ball. But sabi nga dito, involves a chain of two links. So, sasabihin ng bata, the red ball. So, he has learned a verbal association of two or three links. Next is discrimination learning. This involves developing the ability to make appropriate, different responses to a series of stimuli that similar stimuli that differ in a systematic way. The process is made more complex by the phenomenon of interference whereby one piece of learning inhibits another. Interference is thought to be one of the main causes of forgetting. This time, in this type of learning, the students must learn different responses for stimuli which might be confused. The students learn to distinguish between motor and verbal chains to be has already acquired. Next, concept learning. This involves developing the ability to make a consistent response to different stimuli that form a common class or category of some sort. It forms that basis of the ability to generalize and classify. In this learning, a concept we respond to stimuli in terms of abstract characteristics like color, shape, position, and a number as opposed to concrete physical properties like specific wavelengths or particular intensities. Next, rule learning. This is a very high-level cognitive process that involves being able to learn the relationships between concepts and apply those relationships with different situations, including situations not previously encountered. It forms the basis of learning of general rules and procedures. And In learning a rule, we relate two or more concepts. Rules are, in fact, chains of concepts. We may represent knowledge as hierarchy of rules, in which we must learn two or more rules before learning a higher order rule which embraces them. If the student has learned the component, concept, and rules, the teacher can use verbal instruction alone in leading the students to put the rules together. And last, the problem solving. This is the highest level of cognitive process according to Gane. It involves developing the ability to invent or complex rule, alg- algorithmic or procedure for the purpose of solving one particular problem and then using the method to solve other problems of similar nature. In the set of event called problem solving, individual use rule to achieve some goals. When the goal is reached, however, the student has learned something more and is then capable a new performance using this new knowledge. And that is problem solving. And we will discuss again or we will discuss about the 9 events of instruction: gaining attention or reception. Start the learning experience by gaining the attention of your audience. This change in stimulus alerts the group that learning will soon take place. How we will apply? Gain attention by raising the volume of your voice, gesturing, showing a short video on the topic of instruction, or using any other event that brings the period of waiting for the lesson to start and to end. Next, informing learners of the objective or expectancy. Next, you must ensure that your teams knows what they need to learn and that they understand why they're about to learn this new information. How we will apply: explain to your team what they will have learned by the end of the session. Then explain how their learning is going to benefit them and the organization. The next level is stimulating recall of prior learning or retrieval. When your people learn something new, match the new information with related information or topics they learned in the past. How we will apply: review any previous learning that you've done with your team and apply it to what they're learning now. Also, ask your team if they have any previous experience with the topic or if they have experienced the problem that the training is trying to resolve. Then make connections between what they are learned and their previous learning. Next level, present the new information to the group in an effective manner or the presenting stimulus. My God. Presenting this stimulus or selective perception is the next level. So present the new information to the group in an effective manner. So how we will apply: organize your information in logical and easy to understand manner. Try to use a variety of different media and styles like visual clues, verbal instruction, and active learning to suit people with different learning styles. Next, level 5 or the providing learning guidance or semantic encoding. To help your team learn and retain the information, provide alternative approaches that illustrate the information that you're trying to convey. How we apply? Help your team learn more effectively by including examples, case studies, graphics, and storytelling or analog. Next, elis- eliciting performance or responding. At this stage, you need to ensure that your people can demonstrate their knowledge of what you taught them. The way that they show this depends on what they learning. How we will apply it? If you taught a new process or skills, ask your people to demonstrate how to use it. Like role-playing exercise can be useful for this. If you're taught not information, ask questions so that they can show their knowledge. Next, providing feedback or reinforcement. After your team demonstrate their knowledge, provide feedback and reinforce any points as necessary. How we will apply? Imagine that you have taught team a new techniques for handling difficult customers. After several role-playing scenarios, you notice that a few team's members aren't assertive enough to calm the customer in this fictional tense situation. Your feedback and tips point out their mistakes so that they can correct them. Next, assessing performance or retrieval. Your team should be able to complete a test or other measurement tools to show what they learned, the material or skills effectively. Team members should complete this test independently without any help or coaching from you. How we will apply tests, short questionnaires, or even essays can be good ways of testing your team's new knowledge. And last instruction is enhancing retention and transfer. Ito yung generalization. In this last stage, your team members show that they retain information by transferring their new knowledge or skills to situations that are different from the ones you train them on. How we will apply? Repeated practice is the best way to ensure that people retain information and use it effectively. Make sure that your team has enough opportunity to use their learning on a regular basis. Schedule practice runs if you've been training on a new process or have a follow-up session to review information or skills. So, next, we will discuss about Jean Piaget or the cognitive development theory with four stages. Jean Piaget's theory of cognitive development suggests that children move through four different stages of mental development. His theory focuses not only on understanding how children acquire knowledge, but also on understanding the nature of intelligence. The first stage, or the sensory motor first stage is the sensory motor stage. Age birth to 2 years old or 2 years. The major characteristic and developmental changes in this stage: the infant knows the world through their movements and sensations. Children learn about the world through basic actions such as sucking, grasping, looking, and listening. Infant learns that things continue to exist even though they cannot be seen. They are separate beings from the people and objects around them. And last, They realize that their action can cause things to happen in the world around them. In this stage or during this early stage of cognitive development, infants and toddlers acquire knowledge through sensory experiences and manipulating objects. A child's entire experience at the earliest period of this stage occurs through basic reflexes, senses, and motor responses. And it is during the sensory motor stage that children go through a period of dramatic growth and learning. As kids interact with their environment, they are continually making new discoveries how the world works. Next stage, the pre-operational stage, age from 2 to 7 years. The major characteristic and developmental changes are children being to think symbolically and learn to use words and pictures to represent objects. Children at this stage tend to be egocentric and struggle to see things from the perspective of others. While they are getting better with language and thinking, they still tend to think about things in very concrete terms. At this stage, kids learn through pretend play but still struggle with logic and taking the point of view of other people. They also often struggle with understanding the idea of constancy. For example, a researcher might take a lump of clay, divide into two equal pieces, and then give the child the choices between two pieces of clay to play with. One piece of clay is rolled into a compact ball while the other is smashed into a flat pancake shape. Since the flat shape looks larger, the pre-operational child will likely choose that piece even though the two pieces are exactly the same size. Next stage, the concrete operational stage, age from 7 to 11 years. The major characteristics and developmental changes are during this stage, children begin to thinking logically about concrete events. They begin to understand the concept of conservation, that the amount of liquid in a short wild cup is equal to that in all tall, skinny glass, for example. Their thinking becomes more logical and organized but still very concrete. Children begin using inductive logic or reasoning from specific information to a general principle. During this stage, children also become less egocentric and begin to think about how other people might think and feel. Kids in the concrete operational stage also begin to understand that their thoughts are unique to them and not everyone else necessarily shares their thoughts, feelings, and opinions. And for the last stage, the formal operational stage, age from 12 and up. The major characteristics and developmental changes are at this stage, an adolescent or young adult begins to think abstractly and reason about hypothetical problems. Abstract thought emerge. Teens begins to think more about moral, philosoph- philosophical, ethical, social, and political issues that require theoretical and abstract reasoning. The final stage of Piaget theory involves an increase in logic, the ability to use deductive reasoning, and understand the abstract idea. At this point, people become capable of seeing multiple potential solutions to problems and think more scientifically about the world around them. And is if it is important to note that Piaget did not view children's intellectual development as a quantitative process. Kids do not just add more information and knowledge to their existing knowledge as they get older. Instead, Piaget suggested that there is a qualitative changes in how children think as they gradually process through this four stage. And our next person to discuss is Lev Vygotsky. Vygotsky's position. Numerous theories of inner speech have been formulated. Vygotsky's theory, which emphasizes culture, language, and internalization, arguably represents the most complete, original, and coherent view available. In Vygotsky's system, children's cognitive development is affected by culture in two ways. First, children acquire most of their knowledge through culture. In addition, not only does culture teach children what to think, but also how to think. Intellectual growth emerges out of a dialectical process in which problem-solving experiences are shared with parents, teachers, siblings, peers, and etc. Children can solve some problems by themselves, yet other more challenging problems require help from social agents. Vygotsky named the difference between what children can and cannot do by themselves as the zone of proximental development. Dito po kay Vygotsky, sinasabi niya lang po ng isang bata ay hindi ang isang bata matututo through the environment, culture, and others. For example, ang lumaki siya sa isang lugar na liblib or malayo sa kabihasnan. So one day, gusto niyang parang mag-explore or for example na lang, mag-aaral siya sa isang university na malayo sa kanyang lugar. So, dahil doon, matututo siya sa new environment na haharapin niya. And the new culture na ma-adapt niya. So, next is he insisted that not respecting this zone, either by helping children on tasks they can complete on their own, or by not helping enough to difficult tasks. Cognitive development, ideally, people interacting with children initially should guide most of the problem-solving process and eventually transfer this responsibility to the child. Language represents the core type of interaction which allows social agents to convey information to children. Gradually, children's own language becomes their principal tool of intellectual growth, first as speech for self, emitted aloud, or private speech, to guide and control their own actions, and eventually as silent self-talk or the inner speech. And under Vygotsky, the contextual perspective or the social cultural theory. Some theories have concentrated on the role of contextual factors in human development. For example, the social cultural theory that places particular emphasis on the impact of social and cultural experience on the child development. Vygotsky theory 1962 process proposed that the child's development is best understood in relation to social and cultural experience. Social interaction, in particular, is seen as a critical force in development through the assistance provided by more experienced people in the social environment. The child gradually learns to function intellectually on her own. So, by emphasizing the social mediated nature of cognitive processes, this approach offers new ways of assessing children's cognitive potential and of teaching reading, mathematics, and writing. And social cultural also has increased our appreciation of the profound importance of cultural variation in development. So that is for Vygotsky. And let us proceed to the second to the last person, Howard Gardner. The Gardner's multiple intelligences or intelligence. First is multiple intelligence is visual spatial intelligence. People who are strong in visual spatial intelligence. People who are strong in visual spatial intelligence are good at visualizing things. These individuals are often good with direction as well as maps, charts, videos, and pictures. And for example of this intelligence, ito po yung mga taong magagaling sa puzzle, interpret pictures, graphs, and chart, and nag-enjoy po sila sa pagdodrawing, painting, and visual arts. And also, easy to recognize patterns on something. And next is linguistic verbal intelligence. People who are strong in linguistic verbal intelligence are able to use words well, both when writing and speaking. These individuals are typically very good at writing stories, memorizing information, and reading. And ang example po nito, yung mga taong ine-enjoy po nila yung pagiging writer nila o yung mga writer, mga author, ganon. And ito po yung mga people na magagaling mag-explain and use humor when telling stories. Ito po yung mga linguistic verbal intelligence. Next, logical mathematical intelligence. From the word mathematical. People who are strong in logical mathematical intelligence are good at reasoning, recognizing patterns, and logically analyzing problems. These individuals tend to think conceptual about numbers, relationships, and patterns. And these people have excellent problem solving skills, enjoy thinking about abstract ideas, like conducting scientific experiments, and can solve complex computations. Sana all. Next, bodily kinesthetic intelligence. Those who have high bodily kinesthetic intelligence are said to be good at body movement, performing actions, physical control. People who are strong in this area tend to have excellent hand-eye coordination and dexterity. And the people in bodily kinesthetic intelligence are skilled at dancing and sports, enjoying creating things with his or her hands. Mga tricks, for example, yung tricks na lang sa, awan ko, paano pinapaikot yung ballpen sa daliri. Ganon. Have excellent physical coordination. Last is remembering by doing rather than hearing or seeing. Next is musical intelligence. People who have strong musical intelligence are good at thinking in patterns, rhymes, and sounds. They have a strong appreciation of music and are often good at musical composition and performance. These are the people enjoying singing and playing musical instruments, recognize musical patterns and tones easily, remember songs and melodies, have a rich understanding of musical structure, rhythm, rhymes, and notes. Siguro ito yung mga taong magagaling parang sa theater, parang ganon. And next is interpersonal intelligence. Those who have strong interpersonal intelligence are good at understanding and interacting with other people. These individuals are skilled at assessing the emotions, motivations, desires, and intention of those around them. And these are the people are communicate well verbally, are skilled at nonverbal communication, see situations from different perspectives, create positive relationship with others, and also resolve conflicts in a group settings. Next, kung kanina inter, ngayon intra, interpersonal intelligence. Individuals who are strong in intrapersonal intelligence are good at being aware of their own emotional states, feelings, and motivations. They tend to enjoy self-reflection and analysis, including daydreaming, exploring relationship with others, and assessing their personal strengths. And these are the people can analyze their strengths and weaknesses well, enjoying analyzing theories and ideas, have excellent self-awareness, and also understanding the basis for his or her own motivations and feelings. Next, naturalistic intelligence. Naturalistic is the most recent addition to Gardner's theory and has been met with more resistance than his original seven intelligences. According to Gardner, individuals who are high in this type of intelligences are more in tune with nature and area, are often interested in nurturing, exploring the environment, and learning about other species. These individuals are said to be highly aware of even subtle changes to their environments. They are the people are interested in subjects such as botany, biology, zoology, and can categorize and catalog information easily, or enjoying camping, gardening, hiking, exploring the outdoors, and ito naman dislikes learning unfamiliar topics that have no connection to nature. And that are the Gardner's multiple intelligences. And the last person we will discuss is about Daniel Goleman and the five components of emotional intelligence under to him. First, Emotional self-awareness. Knowing what one is feeling at any given time and understanding the impact those moods have on others. From the word self-awareness, for example, um, nakasimangot siya, so aware ka na galit siya or malungkot. So, next, self-regulation, controlling or redirecting one's emotion. Anticipating consequence before acting on impulse. Dito, sabi nga, controlling. So, for example, galit ka. So, ayaw mong may masaktan ka. So, kinokontrol mo yung sarili mo na wag magalit, wag magwala, ganon. So, motivation. Utilizing emotional factors to achieve goals, enjoy the learning process, and preserve in the face of obstacle. From the word motivation. The motivation na dapat hindi mo maramdaman yung emotion na yun. Para sa akin. Next, empathy. Sensing the emotion of others. Siguro ano na lang. Dito kaya pwedeng example yung paano mo malalaman kung crush ka ng crush mo. Diba? So, for example, sabi mo sa sarili mo, pag bumiti ito, crush niya ako. Ganon. So, that is empathy. Next, or the last components, social skills. Managing relationships, inspiring others, and inducing desires, responses from them. Inspiring others. Siguro dito, may example ko na lang. Yung mga taong nakakaranas ng anxiety. So, nakakabilib kasi through that anxiety, nakakayanan pa rin nilang ngumiti. Ang tawag dito, magsaya, ganon. Parang from that, na-inspire mo yung mga tao na lumaban sa anumang nararamdaman. So, under the emotional learnings, we can recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions, and recognize, understand, and influence the emotion of others. And managing emotion is especially important in situations when we are under pressure. For example, when we are giving or receiving feedback. Kasi 'di ba, doon may nasasabi sila, so may mararamdaman ka. So parang kunwari, negative yung sinabi, makakaramdam ka ng lungkot. Pag positive naman, masaya. So yung dealing with challenging relationship, siguro dito masasabi ko na yung matinding pagkakaunawaan or pag-iintindi sa isa't isa. Next is not having enough resources. Siguro may apply ko to sa school, kunwari research. You don't have any enough resources. So, may inis ka, nandiyan na yung inis, galit, halo-halo na yung nararamdaman mo dito or yung emotion mo. And that's all. Thank you. And also, my name is Camille Bautista from Bisad Mat 3B. Thank you and God bless.